Three things before we start. One, I love Star Wars, and also Luke Skywalker is my favorite character in the original trilogy, so like, I'm gonna be extremely biased talking about how much I love this movie. Two, in order to talk about how much I love this movie, there will be spoilers, so if you don't want to be exposed to those, you should probably go. And three, this is not a review, this is just me talking about Star Wars and how much I love it and the things I thought they maybe could have done better, which is not a lot, but still. They decided to do this movie with like three pretty distinct storylines for the three different main characters, so I'm gonna kind of like break it down that way. Poe's whole storyline with like Leia and the fighter ships and stuff like that. I love that it took you with them to that victory of like bombing that initial ship, so you like feel all good about it, but you also like saw the destruction that happened because of it. That one single shot that was so powerful, just seeing her looking at that screen that symbolizes all of these deaths as everyone else is like whooping and hollering and cheering for their victory. When she gets blasted into space and then uses the Force to like get back onto the ship was so cool, and just I love that it just openly acknowledges that Leia is a strong Force user, but just chooses not to fight on that front. Because of her upbringing as an Organa, she knows that like on the political side, on the military side, on the like insurrection and organizing and making things happen, that is where her strength lies, and that is something that needs to get done, and she knows how to do that. Because wars are won with passion and strategy and care, and she has all of those things, and she believes so strongly in the rebellion that she's not gonna go off and fight with some laser swords, because that's not how she's gonna be most effective. The whole theme of like, yeah, being like the heroic flyboy who conquers things is cool and all, but that is not how you win all the time, and you need to have a balance, and you need to care super passionately about what you're fighting for, but you also need to be careful. When like Poe is cowering in the cockpit and the door breaks open, and it's freaking Leia in her hospital gown, I lost my mind. But then on the other end, Poe's just sheer willpower and refusal to give up is delightful, and it's great. It's a great thing to cheer for in a movie, which honestly, I could use a lot of right now. I love that the purple-haired woman who like replaced Leia while she was in the hospital was just like fighting Poe on every front because she knew what was best, but like really liked him and what he was doing, but just knew like it was not effective for the time. And he like does this like risky side mission that ultimately costs a lot of lives. Like had they not gone on that mission, the First Order would not have known how they were trying to escape and defeated so many of their forces. And that whole mutiny, like he just thinks like this is what we have to do, and it's honorable and good, but like kind of misguided at the same time. And I love the dynamic between him and the purple-haired woman because they're really interesting characters, and I really like and was rooting for them both at the same time, which felt really weird. But it was a really good balance for the movie to strike, because what you see in each of them is the same thing, and you like that about them, but how they are achieving their goals is different, and you're not sure how it's going to work out. That purple-haired woman, whose name I'm really embarrassed to have forgotten so much, was awesome. She was so cool, and just that she didn't care about like what people thought of her, she cared about her mission, and she freaking like used the ship as a bullet. That was so cool, and also just like an awe-inspiring scene, like when it goes quiet and then the ship just everyone in the theater like whispered some variety of like, oh dang, in that silent moment, and you could just hear it. Because that's such a powerful moment and a powerful choice. I also think it's really neat that in Leia and Poe you see like an older, wiser woman mentoring a younger man, because that's not something that you see a lot, and honestly, like, there's some awesome women in this world who like have things to teach the next generation. And Poe got so much growth out of it, and it was just like a really well done arc overall, because so much happened in each of the scenes that involved Poe and like the people on that ship. As he grew a ton as a character, you understood him a lot more, because he didn't really get that much in the first movie, so I'm glad that he got more in this one. For Finn's story, I'm gonna start by saying that Finn deserved more. I'm gonna be real here. Finn deserved a lot more than what he got. The whole side plot was kind of rushed, and also there was no actual like arc to it. Like, did he change at all as a person? I don't think so. Like, Poe learned and changed and had like a ton of good relationships and interactions that like he made progress and developed as a character. And Finn, I think, stayed the same. Like, I am always here for this like heist escape subplot thing where you have to break in somewhere, but is that all you could give Finn? It's just, Finn's really cool and has a lot going on, and you can do a lot with his character and his story, and he is one of the main three from like a storytelling and like promotional standpoint, so I don't know why he was shortchanged in this movie. I did really enjoy how like gung-ho Finn was about whatever like weird mission or task that he was assigned to do. He's like, yes, I will do this crazy thing, absolutely 100%, especially contrasting with his character in like the middle of The Force Awakens where he was just like, this is not safe, the First Order is gonna kill us all and we gotta go. Rose was also such a wonderful character and such a great addition to this mix of people. She is like the face of the rebellion to me because even though her role is really small, she cares so much about like the mission and the people, and the whole thing with the pendant and her sister was like surprisingly powerful for how tropey it was, and just that she carries that around with her, not as like spite against the rebellion, but like knowing that that's the cost that she may ultimately have to pay, and that's who and what she's fighting for. She's like thoughtful and smart and not naive in the slightest, but is also genuine and like cares about things, just like watching her smile. And just remembering that that freedom and joy is what the First Order is trying to take away, and so that's what they're trying to hold on to. We're changing the lighting for an interlude because I forgot to talk about this. Finn flying the ship into the laser thing. Such a good moment. That boy is so intense. It was like a bit of character development for Finn, which I was so thankful for. I love that like Rose saved him and everything else about that, like even the kiss I was okay with, which is not my usual jam, but it like worked. It worked. It was also an amazing moment for Rose that she like believes so much in this rebellion and she knows what she's fighting for, and after having experienced the loss of her sister, she knows she can't have that happen again. And her belief in not fighting against what you hate, but in fighting for what you love is so good. It's something that Star Wars needs to talk about more. It's something that the world needs to talk about more. It's something that's like so integral, I think, to the character of Rose and why I just enjoyed her so much in this movie. This was such a good moment for both of them, and I'm like kind of jazzed about this like cool relationship that's happening. That's neat! I wasn't sure about the weird planet of like war profiteers. Aesthetically, I kind of enjoyed some things and was really weirded out by other things. I'm still adapting to the mix of CGI and original trilogy aesthetic that they're kind of smushing together in these movies. But the theme of what looks good on the surface often isn't, and the stories of planets being overtaken and the cost of the war, and not just from a, oh, the First Order is bad and it made all of these things happen, but like, the war is what's causing this, and the rebels are involved in this war. Did feel a little out of place, especially with like the hacker character being the one who voiced a lot of that. He also felt very out of place. I'm not sure what happened there. Was not a super fan of that. Like, oh, yay, we got someone to like hack into the thing, but we didn't help these children escape from literal slavery. I have not historically been super happy with the way that slavery has been handled in the Star Wars universe, because it's a big theme of all of the stories, especially if you like consider droids to be sentient, which I kind of do. There's just a lot that could be explored and talked about that they just don't. And I think this was another missed opportunity in that front. The showdown that Finn gets with Captain Phasma was amazing. It was amazing. I lost my mind when I saw like the 2 seconds of it in the trailer, and then I lost my mind again when I saw it in its full glory in this movie. This is the person who like initially tried to literally like brainwash him into murdering people. She's the one who like mistreated him and tried to make him into this thing that he wasn't, and he is fighting back against her and against everything that she's fighting for. That's like such an interesting story. That's Finn's whole story, is rejecting the First Order and rejecting what he's been told and refusing to take the lives of innocents because he knows that it's wrong. Throughout The Force Awakens, he is afraid and he wants to go and he wants to escape, but then he realizes through Rey that this is important and it's worth fighting for, and he never wavers from that moment on. And I think the fight with Phasma was the culmination of that, and I love the Disney, like, the thing breaks away and she falls dramatically into the flames, like, But if I got that amount of satisfaction from, like, a minute-long fight that honestly wasn't choreographed that excitingly, I would have freaked out had it been longer, had they done more with it, had they had like some dramatic dialogue of the battle of the wills going down. I wish they would have given him more, especially in terms of his relationship with Rey, because they set such a strong foundation for that in the first movie. That was one of the big draws, is just the dynamic between the two of them. They like bring each other into this like whole rebellion thing, kind of inadvertently, but kind of just like because of the interplay of their personalities and what each of them are fighting for. And all we got in this movie was like a couple moments of like, if you see Finn, which were like nice moments, but not enough to sustain like one of the core relationships of your franchise throughout one of the 3 movies you have. While we're on the subject of Rey, you had better buckle up, because I loved every part of Rey in this movie. I thought it was wonderful that Rey came to Luke as part of the rebellion first and seeking training second, and that she like so devotedly was like, I'm here with the rebellion, and did not say any more until he like basically forced her to, just because she believes so much in that cause. A recurring theme in this movie of things that I liked a lot. And just her absolute persistence that's like similar to Poe's but entirely her own at the same time. Like with Luke just like sleeping outside every day, like, you're gonna train me, you're gonna come back, you're gonna save us. And with Kylo just like so strongly believing that there was light in him. All of the stuff like with her training a little bit and like learning about the Force, and the idea of like being trained by someone who's rejected the Jedi and sees the Force as like the balance of light and dark was really cool. Because the whole premise is like there's light and dark and they need each other, and the Jedi do not represent the light side and the Sith do not represent the dark side. I'm also so glad that they were just like, midichlorians are not a thing we're gonna talk about ever again. Because so much of the like lore behind the Force is super interesting, and midichlorians is not part of the interesting bits. So Luke, I'm gonna say, is my favorite character from the original trilogy, so I kind of loved his everything in this movie. I loved it all. It makes complete sense that he's a hermit, because that's just the most Luke thing to do. It was such a compelling story of him resenting the fact that he'd been thought of as this legend, as this person who like saw the light and was able to defeat evil and all of that, even though he doesn't like really believe that's who he is. Of that one moment where he like comes and he's like, I can stop this, I could kill him. And then immediately saying like, no, what am I doing? And then being like filled with this absolute shame and knowing that he could not go back from that moment and he would never be able to explain himself in a way that was sufficient. Oh man, that really got me. That really got me. I've had moments like that in my life, and it just, wow. His complete and total belief that he made Kylo Ren into who he was, even though that kind of is true and kind of isn't true. Oh, and everything coming from like a desire to not see evil flourish again like it did before, and then accidentally helping it to happen in the first place. And just that like self-loathing and like reclusion from the world, and having that come from the character who was this big hero in the original trilogy was just really powerful to me. As for Kylo, I really wasn't super into him after The Force Awakens. I didn't find him that interesting. I honestly got more entertainment from the emo Kylo Ren Twitter than I did from like Kylo Ren's character in the whole movie. I'm so glad they like trashed the helmet immediately. Cause 1, it looks stupid. 2, let Adam Driver act. And 3, the more meaningful one, is like it's very symbolic of his whole Vader obsession, just like letting go of it and wanting to like obliterate the past and make his own way. The like link between him and Rey as they're like going back and forth with one another was just like electric and amazing, and I felt like I was in that moment like experiencing the Force for myself in something that was accomplished like very simply with just like, I don't know who did the sound design for this movie, but it was just like, you're into this and you're listening and you're interacting, and then like somehow like something happens and you just know that that connection is broken. It was just so well done cinematically, especially the first time when you're not really sure what's going on, and then she shoots him and he recoils and you just like, oh my gosh, something's happening here. That whole back and forth throughout all of their interactions, like the tension is so palatable of like this light and this dark, and these two characters who have both inside of them and are like kind of like coming towards like a middle ground where they both exist and they're both stronger because of it. The scene of that culmination with like Snoke in that room full of like the Imperial Guard or whatever they're called now, when they just suddenly, like, after fighting and like interacting with one another and like being forced into this weird connection, they finally click. It was well done on so many levels, like aesthetics, acting, drama, choreography, story, and the cuts that they made between that and the other arcs at the same time. It connected things in a way that I just loved. And also the fact that at their first meeting, her instinct is immediately kill this man. And like as time goes on and she like listens to what's been going on with him and like tearfully asks him why he could possibly murder his own father, even though she thinks he's vile and awful, like still reaches out to him. That's just such a strength of Rey. And Rey's just continual fighting to resist even after she finds out that she had basically played into his hands, and believing like there is light in Kylo and I see it. And it just harkened back so strongly to Luke's conviction about his father in Return of the Jedi, which I think is a big part of the reason why he was one of my favorite characters, and Return of the Jedi before this movie was my favorite Star Wars movie. And it was so cool how Kylo kind of like told the truth to Snoke as he was like lifting his lightsaber and saying like, I'm about to like activate my lightsaber and kill my greatest enemy. Wow, I feel like that those like few seconds told me more about Kylo than the whole first movie. And then the ensuing team up battle thing looked amazing. And just the back and forth, and they just like immediately go into it, and like the lightsabers switching, the fact that like he killed Snoke with her lightsaber, and the moment when she like forces the lightsaber into his hands and he like catches it and activates it and like kills the guard guy. There was so much, and I'm sure I missed a ton, but just the culmination of that journey towards one another in that interplay of just like force users and like lightsabering looked awesome from like a my inner 12-year-old is freaking out standpoint, but also like my inner English major is freaking out at all of the like not super subtle but like really awesome symbolism. The fact that the tension between them literally breaks the Skywalker legacy in half. And with the fact that, like, assuming Kylo isn't lying, Rey isn't a real Skywalker, that I honestly thought was really cool. Because, like, she's not a Skywalker by blood, but she's totally a Skywalker. Like, she makes an instant connection with both Leia and Luke, and, like, understands Han in a way that he hasn't been understood since he like met these two weird Skywalker losers many years ago. Her like unflinching belief in the light even as she is so tempted by the dark, and her like absolute stubbornness and like delving into whininess, like come on, that's like Skywalker 101. Complain about things. And again, that whole parallel between her and Luke believing in Kylo/Darth Vader, just like that's such a Skywalker thing to do. She feels intuitively like a Skywalker, whether she is technically one or not. She is. Because it's not covering the same ground that's been covered in other Star Wars movies. It's not like playing through the same arc that a lot of The Force Awakens felt like, to be perfectly honest with you. But it also feels so like such a Star Wars thing to be happening. Like, it's still Star Wars, but it's not just like copy-pasted Star Wars, you know? The idea of this person outside of this like weird bloodline thing going on, who came in like from outside of the Jedi and outside of like the line of people that we just assumed was gonna save the galaxy, is really cool. It kind of delves into some themes of like adoption and identity and who you really are that I'm so jazzed about and so excited to see explored more. It shut down the weird Jedi elitism, and there was a lot of shutting down of weird Jedi elitism in this movie. Just the idea of Luke saying like, yeah, I'll teach you the ways of the Jedi so you can see how broken they are. That was his whole thing in the original trilogy, was him, without knowing it, rejecting all of the like rules and ideas of how a light side user should be that had been imposed by the Jedi Order. You're not supposed to have connections And his connections are what saves him and saves the galaxy. His refusal to accept the fact of Anakin's darkness that the Council had already seen as a lost cause, that is who he is he is a light side user and he is a Jedi, but he does not accept the ways of the Jedi that came before him because he recognizes that they are broken. I was delighted that they actually did like burn that down, literally burned it down. And I know they like did save the books, and I know the Book of the Wills is gonna become important and all of that jazz, but like still. And then just saying, I can't hold on to these old ways anymore. And then Yoda, his master, like coming in and saying, you're right, and if you won't burn this down, I will. Yoda was kind of weird and surprising, but also just nice. I feel like Yoda belongs in all of the trilogies because he recognizes his many, many mistakes. And I think he's the one who saw the failures of the Jedi the most clearly. And what Yoda did for Luke, in many ways, Luke also did for Rey, like literally hiding out, just done until like this new force of Skywalkerness just comes in. But again, they're very distinct. Like Luke had given up and Yoda was like faithfully waiting. So those are different. Again, it's not like a copy-paste Star Wars shenanigans here. I'm so glad. Ultimately, I really do wish that the three mains had interacted more with one another. Finn and Rey had an amazing dynamic in The Force Awakens, so I don't know why they didn't like continue that. And I think it would have been really cool to have Finn come along as a part of that like force related journey because he wielded a lightsaber in the first one. I like do think that Finn is in some way force sensitive, maybe not enough to like become a Jedi, but enough to like understand her journey. Poe and Rey literally meet at the end of this movie. We only have one movie left and two of your main characters just met. There was also like a little bit of whiplash in who I was rooting for in the Poe arc thing. I know that like part of the strength of it was you're kind of rooting for both, but because of the like Star Wars, this side is good sort of vibes that it did have, it was hard to know what they were going for, and I kept like wanting to attach to one character and then being like, oh no, wait, them. It looked stunning on all counts, like costumes and sets and the just all of the different visuals looked amazing. All of the Force stuff with like Rey and Kylo and Luke and all of them being distinct and different, but their interactions with one another and the Force as like a very tangible thing in this movie, and that hasn't always been the case, was just fascinating and I loved it. I thought it was wonderful that it just like took its time with character moments, and while watching it I didn't feel like it was this like big pop culture phenomenon that it was. I was just like a story about these people that I cared about, which is honestly what movies are supposed to be. There were definitely some like squeeze early on of like, ooh, it's an X-Wing, oh wow, Star Wars, they're using the theme, because that's just, I mean, how can you not? But it kind of got outshone by like how good the rest of the movie was, where that like weird nerdy excitement was like still there for sure, but it wasn't just like, ooh, here's a thing that you recognize from the other movies you liked, you should like this one. I think it truly broke away from the very safe realm of The Force Awakens. It finally convinced me that not only is this a trilogy that's gonna be like fun and I'm gonna like it, but can stand on its own within the context of Star Wars and be its own thing and be a thing that is just honestly good. Please tell me what you thought. I would love to just talk about this with everyone and read everyone's theories and just get super excited for the next one. So Poe's whole thing is like trying to be a fighter for the rebellion and a pilot and like get stuff done and defeat people and whatever. That was not a very good intro. Even though throughout the first Avenger, TFA, oh gosh. As for Kylo, I honestly did not care a lot about him after the first Avenger. Dang nabbit.